Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. Dr. Monique, your board certified family physician, coming to you live. You know me as a physician in the kitchen, and so that must mean this is a new episode of Veganish, where we talk about all things plant based. I share with you my journey toward a more plant based diet, and we just talk about things and answer questions and have a good time while we're doing it. Hi there, Mr. Ellis. How are you today?
I am doing great, but I'm looking at myself on the screen. They probably should call me Ashley Larry. The way I need a little moisturize on my face.
See, if you had to say anything, I thought that was a 5 o'clock shadow. I did not realize you were moisture challenged
I need
today.
some moisture right now. I was washing my face before I got on air, and I ran out of time, and so I didn't get any moisturizer. So I'm like, "Woo, help me, Jesus!"
Well, see, I wouldn't have known. I thought it was a beard. Well, welcome everyone. You know this. Welcome to the fastest 30 minutes of my day. I don't know about you all out there in Facebook land, but you know how we do here on this show. We welcome all from near and far. If you're watching us, please drop your city, your zip code, your state, your country, your continent, wherever you're watching us from this evening. And be sure to tag someone, tell them to come on in here, get this knowledge and fellowship, as my grandmother used to say. And if you're watching this on the replay, please drop hashtag replay. We love our replay viewers just as much as those are there who were there when it was live. Me personally, I never catch anything live. I mean, it's just other than maybe sports. I'm never watching anything live. So we definitely appreciate you. So we've got Terry watching us from Detroit, Michigan. The D. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining. I've got some family in Detroit. I haven't been up there in a while, but welcome, 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 welcome. Yeah, so you got to rep your city because I have touch points all over the country. You know, we all do. Everybody's from somewhere, right? And so we like to see how we connect, see what we have in common. So we've got Chicago, the Chi, the Midwest. The Midwest always, it's like neck and neck between the Midwest and like Brooklyn. That'll like chime in first.
Just FYI, BDO's headquarters is in Chicago, so y'all representing for your hometown company there in Chicago. So yeah, we appreciate y'all in the
There
shot.
you go. There you
Cook
go.
County in the house.
Come on, New York. We come on, New York. Don't let us now. I'm from the Bronx. We got bragging rights. We gotta have New York. So where my Brooklyn at? Where the Bronx at? Come on through. Queens, where y'all at? So I think Ellis, I'm gonna let you kind of tell us what we got to sort tonight because we've had a busy week here at BDO. I know you have. You've been busy with a wallpaper hanger this week. There in New York is all right. So Ellis has been busier than a one-armed wallpaper hanger this week. And so I'm gonna have him tell us about what he's been doing and how I got to participate, and then we'll share some of that information with our viewers.
So, for those of you that don't know, the month of June is Men's Health Month, and so that kind of coincides with Father's Day being in June. So we had Men's Health Month. Last month was Women's Health Month, and we did a summit last month, and then this month we did a summit on men's health. And so Tuesday we did 5 virtual panels on Black Doctor. 2 in the morning. The 2 in the morning were on multiple myeloma and clinical trials, and then we had 3 in the evening. The evening sessions were just off the chain. I mean, it was fun, and it was learning and just information, but it was conversational. It wasn't too academic, but it was just great information. And so we did a panel on men's sexual health, and then we did a panel on losing that gut. And so many of us, and that's the panel that Dr. Monique was part of it. That was just power packed. I mean, it was so many different. You had Dr. Griggs. He was talking about getting the soldiers at attention.
And we're not talking about the Army.
And we went all the way and everything on the perspective. We had some great perspective in terms of how the weight loss industry is focused for women. Is kind of, pretty much designed to shame, and they shame women primarily. And so men aren't really included in those conversations. So how can men get more included in that conversation? And then we talked about how body types are different, especially in men. And so sometimes somebody can look thin, but still have that nasty fat, visceral fat that's surrounding their organs. And so it's not just really about how you look, because I know we talk about that beer belly and those carbs and how they tend to sit, and it's got that moniker. But somebody that might have a beer belly all their labs might be just fine, whereas somebody can look real thin and have, fatty liver and all these other things. And so it really is about how your body reacts and responds to it. And so, Dr. Monique did a great job of talking about ways, because we know how we've been talking about it on this show since its inception, and that's really how this show was born, is eating more plant-based diet is the healthiest way for you to kind of revert. We talked about, one of the doctors on the panel shared her weight loss journey. Says she lost 110 pounds.
100 pounds, and reversed her own diabetes.
Reversed her own diabetes. And so think about that. Think about, we have a physician that is diabetic because they were overweight, right? And pretty, if you could lose 100 pounds, you're pretty much obese. I mean, I'm going to call it. She didn't say it, but pretty much.
You lost a whole nother human, basically.
You lost a whole nother human, right? And so that whole weight loss journey for her, we're talking, and so we talked about how you can reverse some of those conditions. And one of the biggest pieces of that puzzle, if you're trying to put together that formula of reversing some of these conditions, is your diet. And I'm not talking about that big D that Dr. Monique always talks about. I'm not talking about the big D with these fad diets and these crash diets. And we did a whole show on the diets. We did 2 shows on that, right?
We sure did.
And so we're talking about the little D, which is what you do every day, what you eat and put in your body every day. And so that's what this show is. That's what the whole theme of the show is. Working on that little D, that diet, the stuff that you eat every day, and how can you add more plant-based foods to your diet, more perishable plant-based foods to your diet. And so really, so what we said when we're talking about what we're going to do on this show, after we took last week off, what we're going to talk about on this show is really, we're going to continue that men's health discussion, where we're going to talk about how men can get that little D and help turn around some of those conditions that disproportionately impact men. And so we know the number one killer of men and women is some sort of cardiovascular disease. And so, Doc, my question for you is, what are some of those heart healthy foods that we can incorporate into our diet that can help kind of clear out some of those pipes that we have started to clog up with? We like to eat our bacon, and we like to eat our fatty meats like our hamburgers and all of those things that are really, really fatty. What are some things that we can do to clear out those pipes and keep our heart working healthily?
Sure. I do want to acknowledge we've had folks join us from Houston, from Atlanta, from Baltimore. So thank you so much for joining us. Now, I've only got about 20 minutes or so left. This is a subject near and dear to my heart. I mean, it's so near and dear. I wrote a whole book about it.
Right.
We'll do that a little later. But yes, and as you've heard us say on this show time and time again, which was so reaffirming being on that panel, because we all were saying the same thing, just in different ways, and really putting all the pieces of that same puzzle together, right? So the short answer to your question is, what kind of food should we be eating to reverse the heart disease or the clogged arteries, the Roto-Rooter, before you need to go to the hospital and have the doctor do the Roto-Rooter? What are some natural ways to do that? Is whole foods. It's whole unprocessed foods. Food closest to the way that it came out of the ground. Let's just say, for example, rice or bread, right? White rice, white bread. Well, why are they those colors? Because they've been stripped of their brand, of their protective coating that gives you that that makes it those complex carbs. And those complex carbs are what's harder for your body to digest, meaning your body has to actually work to break that down. And that gives you a sustained sugar level. You don't get the peaks and the dips like you do with the simple sugars, which can manifest as, kind of getting irritable, and an hour or so after you eat, you're hungry again. So by eating more complex carbs, more leafy green, dark leafy greens, all those beautiful colors, right? The reds, the yellows, the purples, the greens, all the oranges, all these colors in the produce aisle of your grocery store are anti-inflammatories. antioxidants. They are healthy phytochemicals, chemicals made by plants that work in the body to reverse damage. When we say antioxidant, that's something that prevents oxidation. What is oxidation? It's a form of stress. It's a way that the body is broken down by exposure to pollution, smoke, whether it's tobacco or secondhand smoke, um, radiation, microwaves, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Ultraviolet light, all of these things are bombarding our bodies, and over time, they can actually cause damage at the cellular level, and that can manifest as inflammation. It can manifest as clogged heart arteries. It can manifest as diabetes. It can manifest as cancer. So when we were telling you to really eat the rainbow, eat the more fruits and vegetables, it's because those things have those foods have these healthy chemicals that help improve blood flow to certain parts of the body. They help to decrease cholesterol levels, which then in turn keep those pipes open, right? We have heart attacks and strokes. Why? Because the pipes, the blood vessels going to those organs get clogged with cholesterol, with bad fats, with trans fats, saturated fats. So
Yep.
by eating those types of foods, you're lowering what's left to, or what's contributing to those problems. So that's kind of the short answer. But that's why we recommend more of a plant-based, because we know that animal proteins, particularly the way some of them are prepared, grilling at high heat, right, frying, things like that, can
Yep.
promote the release of carcinogens, which are cancer-causing chemicals. Say that fast 3 times. And so that's why we recommend minimizing or eliminating that altogether.
Absolutely. And we'll take y'all all the way back to y'all 6th grade, middle school chemistry. You learn that fire is a form of rapid oxidation, right? So we don't want that. That's a burning that happens. And so you don't want that oxidation in your body. So we need the antioxidants to bring that down, reduce some of that inflammation that's going on. There's some other stuff that you can also eat. It helps clean those pipes out. And this is whole oats, right? So we talk like oatmeal.
Or
But
wheat. I mean, the whole grains, exactly.
whole grains, clear those pipes right out. Lower your blood sugar, right? Because that blood sugar can coagulate. That's a fancy word. and it can also kind of block some
A high blood sugar definitely contributes to inflammation. I don't know if that's what you're trying
yes,
to.
yes,
Inflammation, right? Exactly. It can be high. Too much sugar is irritating to tissues. It's not
yes.
supposed to be there. So definitely.
And you don't want that, like a fatty liver disease can come from when you have too much excess body fat, and fat is created by sugar, correct?
And so what happened? Yes, it's a long chemical process. But long story short, people get so focused on just the sugar, as far
Mhm.
as when they're talking about diabetes. But it's the way your body processes it, because your body needs some sugar. Sugar is fuel for your brain. What we're talking about is the excess,
Right.
and how it's broken down, how it's stored in the liver and in the adipose tissue and throughout the body. So when you have excess of it, that actually it becomes a trigger for all these negative things that happen downstream.
Mm.
So, and then yes, it adds inches, right? It ends up as inches. And you mentioned about the someone looking, skinny, but then they can have all this visceral fat. Um, and that's why as physicians, we really look at the whole patient, right?
Right.
Because someone can look healthy, but then, metabolically things are not well. Or someone may, technically be obese and can be actually a little healthier than someone who's thin, because if that obese person is working out, and, doing certain things to move toward a healthier lifestyle, that person may actually, technically be healthier. Now, of course, carrying the extra weight is still not good, and
Right.
we would like people to get that weight down. But just, being obese in and of itself is not necessarily, oh, that person is not healthy and it's a lost cause. That's not how we as physicians approach it. We do want you to be more of an ideal weight, because we do know that there are risks associated with carrying the extra weight. But there's a whole. So we look at the whole picture. So the short answer is we look at the whole picture, the what we see in the history. The person tells us what we see on our physical exam, and then the laboratory imaging that we do as well.
Absolutely. So cardiovascular, I mean, that's the key, right? That we understand the heart is the pump, the engine of the body, right? And if this is not pumping, everything shuts down. And so we got to make sure that this is protected. And so there are so many different ways, so many different foods that we can eat. And really what Dr. Monique kind of was talking about is a simple change, right? She's not talking about an overhaul of your diet, big D to little d. We're talking about changing from white rice to brown, black, red, maybe some quinoa, eating purple, eating rice in its more natural state. That way your body has to work a little bit harder. You get that complex carbohydrates. You don't have those other, and we learned in one of our earlier shows that white rice can not be vegan because they may use some bone in there to make it white. So is that I'm not making sure
sugar. I think you're thinking of sugar.
Oh, sugar. I'm sorry, that was sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Not the rice. That's the sugar.
Yeah.
But
anyway. But your point about rice though is excellent, because I'm a rice fiend, but I also have texture issues. And what that means is when I tried to eat brown rice, because I know it's healthier for me, but then it just didn't feel like white rice does. Right. But here's the thing, you cook it the way you cook it. Now I love brown rice because you can cook it a certain way. You just have to cook it longer. You cook brown rice longer or in a pressure cooker. And it does soften it up, because I felt like I was like, oh, like what is this going down my throat? But you just have to know how to cook it. And so then you can, and also too, you can, if you sometimes we have to psych ourselves out. If you fold it in a burrito, right? If you're eating it with other stuff, you're not going to really probably be as sensitive to those texture issues versus if you're just eating, rice as a side by itself. So I encourage people, and because I've done it myself, especially as I've gotten older. You may not have liked something before, but try it again and try it a different way, and try it. How are you cooking it? Maybe you're not cooking it long enough, or maybe you're not seasoning it the correct way. You may be very pleasantly surprised to discover some healthier versions of things that you had kind of written off before.
So it's the fastest 30 minutes. So I'm going to talk about one more health condition, and then we'll kind of give at the end of the show, we'll give people some ways to kind of vary. So like if you want to, let's say like peppers, for example, instead of, cooking it all the way down where sometimes you can cook the nutrients out of food. If you cook it too long, maybe taking it up and mix it in some fresh with the cooked, and then just ways to gradually move to the best way to eat these foods. But the condition I'm going to talk about, especially for men's health, is prostate cancer. Because we know, particularly Black men are twice as likely to be diagnosed. They were more likely to be diagnosed earlier, and were more likely to die from prostate cancer. And prostate cancer is one of the most preventable or curable or treatable, not curable, but treatable kind of cancers that's out there for men. And so are there some foods that we could be eating to help kind of stave off or slow that process, or even help prevent us from getting prostate cancer?
Sure. And actually prostate cancer is very curable as well. But the thing about prostate cancer, particularly as it shows up in Black men versus other populations, particularly Caucasian, is other people may tend to die with prostate cancer versus our Black men may die from it. And what I mean by that is, if a man lives long enough, 80, 90 years old, if they do an autopsy and look at his prostate, chances are there's going to be some cancer in there. But he died from something else. So, and he could have had that prostate cancer for years, and it just never really manifested. It was very, slow growing, low risk cancer. Whereas in Black men, it can certainly be more aggressive. And as to your point as to why they're diagnosed at younger ages. So the good news is that what's healthy and good for your prostate, it's pretty much healthy and good for the rest of your body. So when you say what kind of foods, there's not a special prostate diet that I'm aware of, but again, it goes back to, my press the play button again, because here I go sounding like a broken record. But it is those unprocessed. So the foods that we know that are cancer causing, or that trigger, BPH, benign prostatic hypertrophy, or hyperplasia, where the prostate gets bigger, and then the man's known to see difficulty with his stream. He's getting up 3 to 4 times a night to go urinate, things like that. So you want to avoid foods, the high fat, right? The saturated fat, the bacons, the processed meats, right? The burgers, all that's, I know, slow tear down the, I know. Um, you want to avoid those. The again the more complex carbs you can have. The tomatoes. Tomatoes have something called lycopene, which is
Mhm.
again one of those plant chemicals, those protective plant chemicals that has been shown to be protective to men's prostates. So generally following a healthier diet is going to be better for you. There's someone is talking about hormones, and there certainly can be a correlation. Milk. We drink this country. We drink a lot of milk in this country, animal based cow milk. Um, if you can drink, if you can get off the cow's milk and drink more of a plant based milk, and there's a ton of like alternative milks out there now. I saw potato milk. I'm like, what? And so I know, but I'm intrigued. I want to try. I bought one of those gizmos that you can make your own milk. So stand by. I'll tell you about how that adventure goes. But we all know there's hormones in the milk, right? There's chemicals in the milk because it makes them, bigger and plumper and you can get more. So, and then those in the prostate is a gland. So those hormones can certainly affect the gland. So again, getting away from those processed farm raised chickens and things like that are probably being pumped full of these preservatives and hormones is going to be good for you. But the dark leafy greens, the all the stuff we've been talking about, it's really not rocket science. It's just that you people get in a habit of eating things a certain way, and it can be hard or difficult to break those patterns. And that's where we come in, because we're trying to help people realize baby steps, to make undo years and years of how you've been doing things.
Now, is there a special way we need to eat those tomatoes? Can we eat them raw? Do we have to cook them?
Any way you can, any tomatoes. But I will tell you that canned tomatoes, usually we talk about canned food as being like the stepchild of the, like you don't want to eat any canned foods because it can be high in sodium. But tomatoes are actually one of the rare foods that actually become healthier from the canning process. So
Mm.
those all those beneficial plant chemicals and things like that get actually concentrated, and their levels increase from the canning process. So yes, but any form of tomato. I mean, I have in my pantry right now, I have tomato paste, diced tomatoes, crushed tomatoes, you name it. I mean, I've got several varieties of canned tomatoes because, of course, they stay on the shelf longer, and they're pretty economical. But this time of year, when tomatoes are nice and you can get some nice, delicious fresh ones, mix it up.
I'll get some fresh ones. So yeah,
Mhm.
so we're going to go from little D. We just talked about little D. Now we're going to talk a little bit about big D. So there is a diet, a big D diet that has been shown to be protective of men, and that's that Mediterranean diet that has shown in terms of that has been recommended a little bit for some men. So you have to consult with your physician because this show is not, this is, you got to talk to your doctor before you start any diet or make any dietary changes. Make sure you talk to your doctor. That's not what this show is for. We just kind of, give it just for informational purposes only. But yeah, so the Mediterranean diet is a diet that you can think about. So finally, Doc, as we're getting close to the end of our time here, what are some ways that men? Because I know men, we tend, and I'm speaking, as part of that tribe, we tend to be a little bit more meat leaning, right, in terms of our diet. More meat on the plate, fewer vegetables, more meats, and then heavy potatoes and rice and stuff like that, and starches and things
Starches, yeah.
that can weigh on us. What are some easier ways for us to incorporate more vegetables into our diet that won't feel uh, so intrusive in terms of our caveman diet that we like to eat?
Now, first, I want to harken back to, I don't know if it was the very first show we did, but my acronym for the word diet, why I think diet is a 4-letter word, right? And because of the fad dieting, you lose the weight, you gain the weight, you actually gain more than when you were dieting. So I like to use diet as an acronym, which is daily intentions of eating triumphantly. And to me, that speaks to, each day is a new day. Maybe you felt down yesterday, but every day you wake up with the intent, you plan to do better and eat better. So I just wanted to put that out there. But as far as what's a way to eat, and the whole meat thing, the meat industry has really sold us a bill of goods, I think, because, we're a product of the advertising, like that you need to eat meat to become, get big muscles. And actually, but if you think about some of the largest animals on the planet, and I've said this before, like elephants and bison and whales, they don't eat meat and they're massive, right? And so what do they eat? They eat plants. They are herbivores, right? So, it's a myth that you have to eat animal. Now, if you want to eat that, that's fine, but there are ways to get your protein. So what I encourage people to do is, first of all, eat from a smaller plate. Like if you're trying to watch your portions, instead of a 9-inch plate, get a 7-inch plate, right? 7 to 9 inches, depending if you're weaning yourself, you can start at 9, but with the goal of maybe going down to 7. Half of that plate should be vegetables. Half of that plate will be a quarter of the plate will be your starches, and then a quarter of the plate will be your proteins. So when you think about that, when I say vegetables, that can be anything that is leafy, green, lentils, right? You can do legumes. So there's, other than just eating a salad. People think, oh, I just have to eat a salad. No, there's a variety of things. Cauliflower, broccoli. I mean, there's so many different mushrooms. There's so many different ways to get protein, and then there's things like seitan, which is a wheat-based, gluten-based. So if it's not for everyone, people with gluten sensitivity can't eat this, but there's tofu, there's tempeh, there's seitan. All these are plant-based, and they're chock full of protein. I mean, anywhere from like 10 to 14 grams per serving. So lots of different ways, and you can cook them in a variety of ways. I just grilled some seitan and put some barbecue sauce on it, and it tasted like ribs. I mean, it was amazing. So you can certainly add different things and keep a rotation going so that you're not getting bored, right? Experiment with your seasoning, your herbs, your spices, so that you're bringing out different flavors, and really just play with it. So on that plate, where half of it is your dark leafy greens, like I said, your cauliflower, all of these different, too numerous to count vegetables. Then if you're doing a quarter of your plate is your protein, that if you're a meat eater, that would be the size of the meat, not the half of the plate, right? A quarter of the plate, which is usually reverse, right?
Right.
So you have a big steak or something that's taking up half the plate. So the mindset, the change there is going to be, well, can I do half? Because a serving is really 4 ounces, which is the size of the palm of your hand. The palm, not the fingers, a deck of cards or the palm of your hand. So you think about, those of you who eat meat, think about the last time you had a steak. And unless it was a petite filet mignon, it probably was a lot bigger than the palm of your hand.
It was a bone-in sirloin. Sorry.
There you go. 28, 30 ounces, whatever that is. Right. It's like 6 or 7 times the amount we recommend. And then that last quarter would be that could be your starch or your starchy vegetables, right? Bread or potatoes or what have you. So just lots of different ways to kind of mix and match, but it definitely is doable, and it's definitely attainable, and it doesn't have to be overwhelming at all.
A couple other quick caveats, and correct me if I'm wrong. We like some shellfish, but it can be high in cholesterol, so you have to be careful about eating shellfish, and also in terms of allergies,
right?
As well. Doc said it. You got a quick thing you can do is if you want to eat that salad, if you want to add a salad to your meal, eat that first and drink some water, and that'll help lower that appetite threshold, so you won't eat as much when you're eating the carbs and the meats and things like that, so you can lower that. I think Doc said it on Tuesday, but she may have said it again tonight. Get the salad plate. Get the smaller plate for your dinner. Don't get the dinner plate. Get the salad plate. Make it small.
And don't forget, I always have to say this because people sometimes forget it. The liquid calories add up too.
Yeah.
So it's not just what's on your plate. My book is Doc Fix My Plate, but it's not always just what's on the plate. You drink calories as well. If anything that you're putting in your mouth other than water, has some calories associated with it. And alcohol, let's not forget, alcohol has 7 grams of calories, 7 calories per gram. And on the good spectrum, proteins and carbs have 4, fat has 9. So alcohol has almost as much fat. So if you're doing a lot of drinking and you're wondering, why am I gaining weight? Look at your alcohol intake. Those of you who go to a certain coffee chain every day,
Mm-hmm.
those macchiatos or whatever. I don't drink it, so I'm butchering the names,
Mm-hmm.
but you know what I'm talking about, the
I
caramel.
know that one with that mermaid.
Exactly. And I'm too cheap. I'm too cheap to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. So that's just me. And I wasn't a big coffee drinker.
Your New York just came out when you said coffee.
Coffee. So, but I don't do it. But so from a calorie standpoint as well, though, think about it that way. Become cheap with your calories, because if you're doing that coffee every, couple of times a week, that adds up. There is a comment about appreciating and acknowledging that at times you have to trick yourself to adopt healthier options. You do, and it's a good way to kind of gradually move that needle. And I can't let us get out of here though without a plug, a
Yes,
shameless
please.
plug. Shameless plug, because if you're looking for ways to add more variety, to start a plant-based diet, or if you're already enjoying a plant-based diet, but you're looking for ways to tweak it, I've got over 50 vegan recipes in here for you, featuring things like legumes, different ways of using some well-known ingredients, kind of like to veganize our soul foods. If you want some mac and cheese, I got a delicious mac and cheese recipe in here. But I also talk about just making that transition. How do you stock your pantry? How do you swap out for milk and eggs and butter, right? If I'm going vegan, but I need milk. You just told me I need to stop drinking cow's milk. So what do I do? So there's something in there for everyone. And I really think you'll enjoy it. But it's, and give yourself some grace. That was the other thing that came out on the call on the show the other day that I thought was, one of the doctors said, give yourself grace, and don't be, we tend to be our own worst critics.
Yep.
Because we know what our weaknesses are, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that little voice inside can sometimes be very harmful to yourself. So give yourself some grace. Know that it's a process. It's progress, not perfection.
Right.
And you're not going to, undo 30, 40, 50 years of doing something overnight. But if you have a mindset, if you have a path or a plan, you're much more likely to be successful than kind of just doing it haphazardly, or, just because somebody else is doing it. My son recently started working out, started going to the gym, and I have been after him for years. Like, I get up, I work out every day, and I'm like, how's my kid not working out? So when he started going to the gym, my first thing was, what's her name? But then he when a man starts doing, making certain changes, there's usually somebody else involved. I'm just gonna leave it at that. But
You're not wrong, but you're wrong.
But what he said to me was, he said, no, he said, I'm getting ready to go to college, and I just want to, it's still kind of, but he's like, I want to look better. And there's nothing wrong with the way he looks, but he just wants to do that. And I said, well, good. You're doing it for yourself. And that's what's going to make you more successful. And Ellis, I'm trying to work with him here. Okay?
I get it. Yeah.
So saying all that to say, you have to find your why, and that's why I don't really buy into the New Year's resolution. You pick, just because somebody else said January 1st, you need to, okay. And then what happens? By February, you've fallen off, if that long, right? Pick a day that means something to you. If you're a cancer survivor, your anniversary of being in remission, an anniversary of something, whatever, something that is more meaningful to you, that you can be more successful with, and just start to think of things that way.
Develop habits, not goals, right? Because goals have an end date, right? Goals, I want to get to this.
But you can always push the goal.
Goals are along the way as you work on your habits, right? You set minor goals, but that the goal shouldn't be the end, right?
Right. Like, I reached it, I'm done. No,
the goal is developing the habit of healthy, the habit of exercising regularly, the habit of minding, of watching your sugars and alcohol intake. That's a habit. Goals are, hey, I want to, hit this weight. I want to lower my cholesterol number to this, whatever. Those are goals that you set along the way. But the habit, you got to build a habit to achieve the goals. And so that's really, those two things go together in terms of building that process that's sustainable over time. But yeah, so please go get the book. And if you get the book and you come back and watch the show, let us know. Let us know.
Please. Yes. John, I see John. He wrote mac and cheese and he gives the side eye. I'm telling you, it'll change your life. It'll change your life.
We did a demonstration on the show and it was enlightening. So John, I encourage you to go back and watch that cooking demonstration. But I can't describe it. It was just thank you, Destiny. Yeah, develop the habits. And the habits will help you reach your goals much easier because they're going to be more sustainable over time.
All right. And and we've got July 4th. We need to let people go and get to their holiday, but don't think just the carnivores have to have all the fun on the grill this Monday. Get out there, get grilling some vegetables. Oh, I do want to say just one quick thing about grilling, because we do talk about how grilling can make harmful chemicals that are carcinogenic when you grill meat at high heat. The grease drips down and fumes and all that. Don't have to worry about that with vegetables. So grill your vegetables. You do not have to worry about that. The HCAs and the other harmful chemicals that are released from grilling animal protein at high heats, it's not the same with your grilled vegetables and fruits. And the caramelization and bringing out the natural sugar just takes those foods up to another level. So go forth and grill your vegetables this weekend.
And if you're grilling meat, please do not get that. Don't eat that black char. That is carcinogenic. Okay, so don't eat that. I know some of y'all really like that. When you're grilling, you like the char. Don't eat the char. It's not good for you. It's not good for you. So find a better way. There's other ways that you can get the same kind of flavor.
Liquid smoke and smoked paprika. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful 4th of July. Be safe, and we'll see you next time.
See y'all.